The wind howled across the dark mountains of Aravor, carrying the smell of rain and the sound of distant thunder. A young man named Elias climbed the slippery rocks, his torchlight flickering against the stone walls. His heart beat faster with every step, not from fear of falling, but from what waited above him. The cave, the one that no one dared to enter, was near. They called it the Cavern of Emberfall. Old stories said a dragon slept there, guarding a treasure so great that kings once sent armies to claim it. None ever returned, but Elias was not a king. He was just a thief, hungry and desperate. He wasn't climbing for fame or glory. He climbed for his sister, the girl he had promised to protect. The girl now trapped as a servant to a cruel lord who demanded gold in exchange for her freedom. Elias had no gold. He had no army. He had only one choice: to steal from the dragon's hoard and risk everything. Lightning flashed, lighting up the mountainside. For a moment, Elias saw the massive cave entrance above him, shaped like a dragon's open mouth. The rain burned his skin as it fell, hot and strange. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "Just a little gold, that's all I need. Just enough to buy her freedom." He tightened his grip on his torch and stepped into the darkness. Inside, the air was heavy, warm, and filled with the faint smell of smoke. The deeper he went, the quieter the world became. Even his footsteps seemed swallowed by the silence. The walls of the cave shimmered with gold dust, and strange carvings glowed faintly. He ran his fingers over the symbols. They showed a great dragon surrounded by fire and chains, and beneath it, words carved in an ancient tongue. Elias could not read them, but he could feel their warning. Something inside whispered, "Turn back." But his heart answered, "Just a little further." After what felt like hours, the narrow tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Elias gasped. Before him stretched a mountain of gold. Jewels and weapons, crowns and coins spilled across the stone floor like rivers of sunlight. It was more treasure than he had ever imagined. For a moment he forgot to breathe. He stepped closer, eyes wide, mouth open. Every coin seemed to whisper his name, Elias, Elias. "Take us." His torchlight reached the far end of the chamber, and that was when he saw it. A shape, massive and still, the size of a house. Scales dark red with a soft glow underneath. The dragon. It lay upon the treasure like a mountain come to life. Its wings were folded, its tail curled around piles of gold. Its chest rose and fell slowly with every breath. The air trembled with a low rumble each time it exhaled. Elias froze, his breath caught in his throat. The stories had been true. He was standing before a living dragon, and yet it was asleep. He could not look away. The creature was both beautiful and terrifying. Its claws were the size of swords, its teeth like white daggers, and still there. At the center of the treasure, something glowed even brighter. A crown covered in rubies and emeralds. Resting near the dragon's chest, it shone with a light that seemed alive. Elias's hands trembled. He whispered, "That's it. That's enough for 100 lifetimes." He thought of his sister's face, the fear in her eyes. He had promised her safety, and here was his chance to keep that promise. But to reach the crown, he would have to pass dangerously close to the dragon's head. He looked around and saw smaller treasures scattered near the cave's edge. Coins, necklaces, and rings. He could take a few of those and leave quietly. He could live. Or he could go for the biggest prize, the crown that could change his life forever. The whispering grew louder. "Take it. Take the crown. It's yours." Elias stepped forward slowly, his heart pounding like thunder. Each footstep echoed too loudly. A single coin rolled away under his boot. Clinking across the stone floor, the dragon's ear twitched. Elias froze again, his body shaking. The beast let out a deep breath that shook the chamber. Smoke curling from its nostrils, he waited, counting his breaths, until the dragon settled once more. He was close enough now to see his reflection in one of the dragon's golden scales. He looked small and pale, a shadow against something ancient and powerful. He reached out and picked up a small ruby necklace near his feet. The moment his fingers touched it, the whispering turned into a roar. The carvings on the cave walls lit up bright red. The dragon's chest began to glow from within. The ground trembled, coins slid and fell. Elias stumbled back, his torch shaking in his hand. Then came the sound, a deep rumble that turned into a growl. The dragon's massive eye opened, glowing like molten gold. Elias stared into it, frozen in terror. The eye focused on him, and a voice echoed, not in the air, but inside his mind. "What do you seek, mortal? Gold or purpose?" The air around him turned hot. The ground cracked beneath his feet. Elias felt his heartbeat hammering in his ears. He didn't know if he should answer or run. The voice spoke again, softer now. Choose wisely. The dragon's gaze drifted to the small ruby necklace in his hand, and then to the glowing crown. Elias understood the meaning of the words. He could sneak away with a small treasure and perhaps escape, or risk everything and reach for the greatest prize of all. The wind outside screamed through the cave entrance as thunder rolled above. Elias looked from the ruby to the crown, sweat running down his face. One choice meant life. The other meant power beyond imagination. He took a breath, staring into the golden light. Then the screen fades to black as the voice echoes again. The choice begins. Elias stood frozen in the dark cave, his hand still gripping the ruby necklace. The dragon's golden eye glowed like fire. Watching him without blinking, he felt his legs weaken, his breath coming fast and shallow. The air was hot, almost burning, and every sound echoed like thunder. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, the dragon's eye slowly closed again. The deep rumble of its breathing returned, shaking the gold beneath its claws. Elias didn't know if it was truly asleep or just pretending, but he knew one thing: he was still alive. He took a step backward, his heart pounding. The ruby necklace glittered in his hand. The stones warm as if alive. He wanted to drop it. But the thought of his sister's face held him still. She needed him, and this necklace could be her key to freedom. Just this, he whispered to himself. Just one thing. He turned toward the tunnel, moving as quietly as he could. The gold crunched under his boots, and his torchlight flickered again. But as he walked, the whispers returned, softer now, but clearer. They came from all directions, from the coins, the walls, even the air. Why stop there? One voice hissed. You could take more, whispered another. Elias shook his head. No, enough, he whispered back, his voice trembling. But deep inside, greed began to stir, like a spark in dry wood. As he reached the tunnel's edge, something caught his eye, a faint golden glow from behind a pile of coins. It wasn't the crown. This light was different, pulsing, alive. He hesitated, then slowly stepped closer. Half buried in the gold lay a small crystal orb. Shining softly, it was beautiful, pure, and strange, unlike any gem he had seen before. He reached out a shaking hand and picked it up. The moment his skin touched the orb, the cave seemed to shift, the air grew heavy, and the world around him blurred. He blinked, and suddenly he wasn't in the cave anymore. He stood in a dark field beneath a red sky. The ground was cracked and dry, and in the distance stood a shadow of the dragon, massive and black, wings spread wide. The whispers became a single voice, deep and echoing inside his head. You have touched the heart of Vylora. Elias spun around, searching for the source of the voice. Who's there? He shouted. The ground trembled, and the shadow dragon stepped closer. Each word it spoke shook the air. You entered my domain, mortal thief. Now you must answer my question. The red light dimmed, and from the shadows came two visions. Floating before him on one side, he saw his sister, crying behind iron bars, calling his name. On the other side, he saw piles of treasure stretching beyond the horizon. Gold, jewels, crowns, endless wealth. The voice spoke again. What do you seek, Elias of Aravor? Gold or purpose? Elias's throat went dry. He wanted to say purpose, but his heart whispered gold. He thought of his sister's tears, the cruel lord's threats, and the hunger in his stomach. He said softly, I seek freedom. The dragon's eyes glowed brighter. Freedom. For whom? Elias hesitated. He wanted to say, for my sister. But something stopped him. He realized that part of him wanted more. He wanted to escape poverty forever, to live without fear. The dragon's voice rumbled again. You speak of love, but your heart hides greed. The red world began to twist and spin, the sky tearing apart. Elias fell to his knees as the ground split beneath him. He screamed, I didn't mean to. A blinding light exploded when his vision cleared. He was back in the real cave. The orb lay shattered in his hand. Glowing faintly, the dragon was no longer asleep. Its head lifted slowly, its eyes burning brighter than fire. Elias stumbled back, dropping the broken crystal. The dragon's wings unfolded, massive and dark, brushing the walls of the chamber. Its voice filled the air, not with sound, but inside his mind. You have awakened what should never wake. The ground shook violently, Coins spilling like waterfalls, flames burst from cracks in the stone, and the gold began to melt. Elias tried to run, but the dragon's tail slammed down behind him. Blocking his path, smoke filled his lungs. His eyes watered, he could barely see. The dragon leaned close, its golden eye inches from his face. It spoke again, softer this time. You are brave. Or foolish. You took what is mine, and now you must bear the test. Elias trembled. Please, I didn't mean to steal your heart. I only needed... The dragon's voice cut him off. Need, want, take. That is what all humans say. The cave began to glow red again. The carvings on the walls shifted, showing new images. Elias himself standing before a mountain of gold. The voice continued, If your heart is true, prove it. If your soul is pure, survive it. Then, with a single flap of its wings, the dragon released a burst of golden fire. It didn't burn. It surrounded Elias, wrapping him in light. He screamed as the world around him dissolved into nothingness. The gold vanished, the cave disappeared, and he found himself standing in an endless void of shifting colors. Whispers surrounded him once again, soft and endless. You chose wrong. The dragon's voice echoed faintly. Elias looked down at his hands, and the ruby necklace began to melt into smoke. He shouted into the emptiness, What do you want from me? But there was no answer. Only the faint sound of the dragon's laughter. Echoing from far away, the world twisted again, and Elias felt himself falling back toward the cave, back toward the fire as the light faded. The last thing he heard was the dragon's whisper, The test begins now. Elias gasped for air as the light faded around him. He was no longer falling. He stood in a place that didn't feel real, a world of floating stone paths and golden mist. The air shimmered like sunlight through water, and far above, stars moved slowly across a red sky. His heart pounded as he looked around. He was alone, or so he thought, then a shadow passed over him. Huge and slow, Elias looked up, and his breath caught. The dragon, Velora, descended from the clouds of gold. Wings spread wide, eyes glowing like twin suns. Her scales were dark crimson, but streaks of light pulsed beneath them, like veins of living fire when she landed. The ground itself shook. Elias stumbled but didn't fall. The dragon stared at him, her voice echoing in his mind. You touched the heart of Velora, thief of Aravor, she said. Few mortals ever survive that, and fewer still are given a second chance. Elias swallowed hard. He wanted to speak, but no words came. When he finally found his voice, it cracked. I didn't mean to steal it, I swear. I just wanted... Velora's eyes narrowed. Gold, she said, her tone cold and knowing. All humans want gold. Her voice echoed like thunder across the golden void. But your desire is not simple greed, is it? Elias clenched his fists, his voice shaking. I needed it for my sister. She's trapped. I'm trying to free her. The dragon tilted her head slowly. You think love excuses theft? She asked. Her words pierced deeper than any blade. Elias said nothing, his throat tight for a long moment. Velora only watched him, her eyes glowing softly. Then her tone changed, no longer anger, but something older, heavier. You are inside the realm of trials, she said. A place between life and death. Dream and truth. Elias looked down at his hands, glowing faintly gold. Am I dead? He asked quietly. The dragon's wings shifted, sending ripples through the air. Not yet, she replied. But if you fail my test, your body will turn to ash, and your soul will join my treasure forever. Elias's heart sank. What test? He asked. Velora leaned closer, her voice soft as smoke. A test of the heart, she said. If your spirit is pure, you may leave this place alive, perhaps even with what you came for. Her eyes gleamed. But if your heart hides greed, you will never wake again. Before he could speak, the ground beneath him shimmered. The golden mist thickened, forming shapes, walls, doors, streets. Elias blinked, and suddenly he was standing in a familiar village. His village, the dragon was gone, replaced by sunlight and the smell of bread baking. He looked around, confused. Children ran through the streets. Merchants laughed. The sky was bright and blue. It felt real. He touched a wall, and it was warm, solid. Then he saw her, his sister. Mira, standing near the well, her eyes were full of joy. Her smile bright. Elias, she called, running toward him. He felt tears rise in his eyes. He ran to her, laughing, and pulled her into a hug. I did it, he whispered. You're safe now. She looked at him strangely. Safe? From what? She asked. Elias blinked. The Lord? The debt. Don't you remember? But she only smiled and said, "You must be dreaming." Suddenly, a flash of light filled the sky. The air grew hot again and a deep voice whispered, "Look closer." The scene around him began to flicker. The villagers' faces changed, eyes hollow, smiles frozen, movements stiff like puppets. Elias stepped back, heart pounding. "Mira?" he said softly. His sister looked up at him, her eyes now empty, her voice hollow. "You took from the dragon, brother. Now the price is due." Her hand lifted and gold dust began to pour from her skin. The villagers crumbled into piles of coins. The houses turned to gold and the sky burned red. Elias fell to his knees, the world melted away. Turning back into the golden void, Velora's massive shape appeared again, wings unfurling like fire. Her voice thundered through the space. "This is the truth of greed, Elias of Aravor. Everything you love turns to gold, and gold consumes all." Elias shouted, "Stop it. I'm not greedy. I just wanted to save her." Velora's eyes glowed brighter. "Then prove it," she said. The light around him twisted again, forming two glowing paths in front of him. One path was lined with golden jewels, endless and bright. The other was dark and narrow, leading toward the sound of his sister's crying voice. Velora's words echoed. "One path will give you everything you desire. The other will take everything you love. Choose." Elias's hands shook. He stared at both paths, sweat running down his neck. The golden path shimmered, showing visions of freedom, power, and wealth. The dark path showed pain, loss, and loneliness. He whispered, "There has to be another way." But the dragon's voice came again. "There is no third choice." He took a deep breath and stepped toward his sister's voice. As soon as his foot touched the dark path, the gold around him cracked and vanished. The light dimmed and he began to run, calling her name. "Mira, I'm coming." The shadows thickened, whispering his name over and over. When he finally reached the end of the path, a small door appeared, glowing faintly. He pushed it open and saw a figure standing inside. It was Mira, but she looked older, her face pale, her eyes full of sorrow. She whispered, "You chose me over gold, but will you choose truth over love?" Before Elias could answer, her image shattered like glass. A dark laugh echoed around him. The voice was not Mira's, it was Velora's. "You chose wrong." The golden void exploded into light once more. Elias screamed as the world around him dissolved. He fell again into darkness, the dragon's laughter fading into the distance. Only one thought echoed in his mind. The test isn't over. Elias woke with a gasp. The air around him was thick and cold, the sound of dripping water echoing through the cavern. For a moment he didn't know where he was. His body ached, his hands trembled, and the taste of smoke lingered on his tongue. When his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he realized he was back inside the dragon's cave. But something had changed. The mountain of gold was no longer shining. It looked dull, gray, and lifeless. The air was heavy, filled with the smell of ash. The carvings on the walls that once glowed now pulsed faintly. As if fading away, Elias rose to his feet slowly. Gripping his torch, though it barely flickered, he remembered the dream world, the test. His sister, the dragon's voice, he whispered. Was it real, or was it all inside my head? The silence that answered made his skin crawl. He walked carefully through the chamber, coins crunching beneath his boots. Each step echoed like a drumbeat in the empty darkness. Then he saw it, something new near the far wall. Half buried in a pile of dust and gold was a tall mirror. Its frame was black as night, carved with strange symbols that moved like shadows. A faint light shimmered inside it, as if something was breathing on the other side. Elias stepped closer. The mirror's surface rippled slightly like water. He saw his reflection staring back, but something about it felt wrong. The reflection smiled first before he did. It tilted its head and whispered, "You finally woke up." Elias froze, his torch shaking in his hand. His reflection spoke again, the voice soft and cold. "You failed the test, Elias of Aravor." "But not all is lost," Elias whispered. "Who are you?" The reflection laughed quietly. "I'm you, or what's left of you," it said. "I'm the part that wanted more, the part that still does." Elias shook his head, stepping back. "No, you're not me." The reflection's eyes gleamed gold. "Oh, I am, and I can give you what the dragon never will." Elias hesitated, staring into the glass. The reflection raised a hand, and for a moment, Elias felt an invisible pull, like the mirror was drawing him closer. Inside the reflection, he saw flashes of things he wanted. His sister freed. The Lord begging for mercy. Gold flowing like rivers around him, the reflection said softly. The dragon wants to test you, to break you. But I can make you strong enough to fight her. Elias frowned. Fight the dragon? The reflection smiled wider. Yes. Take what's yours. The words echoed inside his skull. He felt the whisper of temptation again, the same voice that had haunted him since the moment he stepped into the cave. He clenched his fists, trying to look away. But the reflection changed, no longer calm, now twisted with anger, its voice turned sharp. Don't walk away from me, Elias. You'll die if you don't listen, Elias shouted. Enough! And threw a rock at the mirror. It struck the glass, but instead of shattering, the surface rippled like water. A dark hand burst out from the mirror. Grabbing his wrist, Elias screamed, trying to pull back. But the reflection's grip was like iron. The mirror began to glow, the symbols on its frame burning red. Come, the reflection hissed. Let me show you your true power. Elias kicked and pulled, his body trembling. Let go, he shouted, but the hand only pulled harder. His feet slid across the gold floor as the mirror dragged him closer. He could see his reflection now, its eyes burning with fire, its mouth twisted into a grin. Stop fighting, it said. You and I are the same. The air filled with the sound of the dragon's roar. The cave shook violently, sending coins tumbling from the piles. Vylora's voice thundered through the darkness. Elias, do not touch the mirror. Elias turned toward the sound, shouting, help me. But the dragon's voice was fading, drowned out by the growing hum of power from the mirror. The reflection whispered, she fears me, because I am the piece of you she cannot control. Elias's hand was halfway inside the glass now. It felt cold and endless. Like falling through water, he screamed again. But the mirror's pull only grew stronger. Then suddenly, he remembered Vylora's words from before. If your soul is pure, survive it. With all his strength, Elias grabbed his dagger from his belt and slashed at the dark hand. It vanished in a burst of smoke, and the mirror's light dimmed for a second. Elias fell backward, panting hard, his body shaking. The reflection stared at him from the other side, its expression now calm again. You can't run forever, it whispered. Soon. The dragon will ask for more than you can give. Elias crawled away, breathing heavily, but the mirror began to glow again. Brighter than before. The reflection raised both hands and pressed them against the glass. Its voice grew louder, darker. When your fear breaks you, I'll be waiting. And when you finally beg for power, I'll take your place. The cave shook once more, cracks spreading across the mirror's frame. Vylora's roar thundered from deep within the mountain. Elias shouted over the noise. What are you? The reflection smiled one last time. I'm your next choice, it said. Then the glass exploded outward in a burst of black smoke. Elias covered his face as the pieces flew past him, cutting his arms and legs. When the smoke cleared, the mirror was gone. Only a faint shimmer remained in the air, like something alive still lingered there. Watching, Elias collapsed onto the ground. Gasping, the dragon's voice whispered faintly through the rumbling cave. You have awakened your shadow. The test has changed. Elias looked around the chamber. Trembling, his reflection was gone, but deep inside, he could still feel it. Something dark and waiting, whispering in his mind. Then, from the shadows at the far end of the cave, came a low growl, not from Vylora. Something else had awakened. Elias looked up, his eyes wide, and the voice in his head whispered, Round 2, Elias. Begins now. The ground was still trembling when Elias stood again. The air in the dragon's cave was heavy with dust and the faint scent of burnt magic. He coughed, clutching his chest, his torch flickering weakly. The black smoke from the shattered mirror drifted upward and vanished into the cracks in the ceiling. Everything was quiet now. Too quiet. Elias took a slow step forward, his boots crunching against shards of glass. Each piece shimmered faintly with his reflection, though the reflections didn't move like they should. Some smiled, others frowned. One even looked away as if afraid. He whispered, What did you do to me? But his voice sounded strange, echoing twice, as if someone else had spoken with him. He froze. The echo came again, whispering from the darkness. I didn't do anything. We did. Elias spun around, his dagger raised. Who's there? He shouted. The air behind him shimmered, and from the mist stepped another Elias, identical in every way except for his eyes. They burned gold and red like molten fire. The reflection smirked. Missed me? Elias stumbled back, his hand shaking. You're from the mirror, he said. The other Elias nodded. You broke the mirror, but not the bond. He spread his hands, his tone calm but sharp. Now we're both free. Elias backed away slowly. You shouldn't exist, the reflection chuckled. Maybe, but neither should you, not here. Not after touching dragon fire. Not after stealing from Velora's hoard. It tilted its head. You changed the moment you entered her cave. And I am that change. The real Elias clenched his dagger. What do you want? The reflection's grin widened. To finish what you started. It gestured around the cavern. You came here for gold, for glory, for power. But every time you doubt yourself, every time you hesitate, I grow stronger. Elias shook his head. You're lying. Am I? The reflection asked softly. Then why do you still hear me when I'm not here? Elias's heart pounded. He remembered the whispers, the sudden rage, the temptation in his dream. It had always been there, waiting, watching, he whispered. You're not real. The reflection's expression darkened. Keep telling yourself that. Suddenly, the cavern trembled again, and a low rumble rolled through the walls. The dragon's voice echoed faintly in the distance. Elias, control your soul before it controls you. The reflection laughed. Hear that? Even she knows you're breaking apart, Elias shouted. Stop, and lunged forward, his dagger flashing. The blade passed straight through the reflection's chest like smoke. But instead of disappearing, the reflection laughed harder. Still trying to fight shadows with steel? Elias stumbled, his head spinning. The reflection stepped closer, and as it did, Elias felt the air grow colder. The gold around them darkened. Turning black like soot, the reflection whispered, Let me help you, Elias. I can give you what you want, real strength. The kind that doesn't tremble. Elias closed his eyes, trying to shut out the voice. He remembered his sister's face, her laughter, her promise. I'm not doing this for power, he said quietly. I'm doing this for her. The reflection smirked. Then let me help you save her. Elias opened his eyes, and for a second he saw the reflection's hand extended, not in attack, but in peace. Its eyes softened, almost human again. If we work together, it said. The dragon won't stand a chance, Elias hesitated. Breathing hard, he could feel the truth in the words. The weight of the choice. Every instinct told him to run, but something else, deep inside, told him to listen before he could decide. The ground beneath them cracked. A violent tremor split the cavern in half, sending gold and dust flying. From below came a deep growling sound, like the earth itself was alive. The reflection looked down and smirked. She's waking up, Elias shouted. Who? The reflection's eyes gleamed. The other guardian, from the fissure in the ground. A massive claw rose, black as coal and dripping with molten stone. The heat blasted across the chamber, and Elias stumbled back, covering his face. A creature emerged, its body made of lava and ash, its eyes burning brighter than any fire he'd seen. It roared, shaking the walls, molten sparks flying everywhere. The reflection grinned. That's what happens when you break an ancient seal. Partner. Elias turned to run, but the reflection grabbed his arm. You can't fight that thing alone, it said. Let me in, let me take over. And we can destroy it. Elias pulled away, shouting. No. The reflection's voice grew louder, almost desperate. You'll die if you don't. The lava beast roared again, swinging its massive arm, smashing through the treasure piles. Elias dived behind a column, panting, his mind racing. The reflection's voice whispered inside his head now. You don't have time, Elias. Choose, let me help you. Or we both die. Elias gritted his teeth. He looked at the dagger in his hand, the same one his sister gave him. Her voice echoed faintly in his memory. You're stronger than you think. He stared into the reflection's glowing eyes. Then, taking a shaky breath, he said, Fine, but I'm in control. The reflection smiled. As you wish. The moment he said it, the reflection's body dissolved into smoke and rushed toward him. Elias screamed as the darkness entered his chest, the world spinning violently around him. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. Then his eyes snapped open, now glowing gold and red. His voice echoed twofold when he spoke. Let's end this. He turned toward the lava creature. Gripping his dagger, his veins pulsed with energy, power unlike anything he had felt before. He dashed forward with inhuman speed, the blade cutting through the air. The creature swung its molten claw, but Elias met it head-on. The impact sent a shockwave through the cavern, scattering gold and stone. The reflection's voice inside him whispered, "See? We're unstoppable." Elias gritted his teeth. For now. As the creature stumbled, Elias raised his dagger high, ready to strike again. But before the blade fell, he froze. A faint voice spoke inside his head. Not the reflections, not the dragons, it was his sisters, whispering softly, "Elias, what are you becoming?" The glow in his eyes flickered, the lava beast lunged again, and everything went white. When the light faded, the cavern was silent, the creature gone. Elias stood alone, his dagger smoking, his hands trembling. But in his reflection on the gold floor, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The reflection smiled at him, even though he wasn't smiling back. And then the voice said, soft and certain, "You're not the one in control anymore." Elias stood in the ruins of the cavern. The gold beneath his feet was melted, the air thick with smoke. He could still smell burnt stone and feel the heavy pulse of power running through his veins. But something inside him felt wrong. The voice that wasn't his whispered softly, almost sweetly, "See what we can do together?" He clenched his fists, his breathing sharp and uneven. He looked at his reflection in the molten puddle nearby. His eyes glowed faintly red, flickering like fire. He whispered, "You're not me." The reflection tilted its head and smiled. "Maybe not. But I'm better." Before Elias could answer, a thunderous roar shook the cavern. The air trembled, dust fell from the ceiling. And then Valora appeared. The ancient dragon's body filled the space. Her golden scales cracked from age but burning with light. Her wings stretched wide and her eyes glowed like twin suns. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "Calm yet filled with power, Elias of Aravor," she said. "You have broken the seal, awakened your shadow, and called forth the old guardian." Her gaze swept over the destruction. "You have crossed lines even the boldest dare not." Elias fell to his knees, his dagger slipping from his grasp. "I didn't mean to," he began, but the dragon's voice thundered, "Intent does not erase consequence." The reflection inside him whispered, "She's afraid of you." Elias shook his head, pressing his palms to his ears. "Be quiet," he hissed. Valora watched him closely, her expression unreadable. "The shadow inside you grows," she said softly. "And if it consumes you, this world will suffer again," her words echoed, filling the silence between his racing thoughts. Elias looked up, trembling. "Then help me," he said. "Tell me how to stop it." The dragon's golden eyes narrowed slightly. "There is only one way," she said. "The trial of flame." A gust of hot wind filled the chamber as fire began to circle them. The dragon lowered her head until her eyes met his. "You will face your own soul," she said, "and either burn the darkness from it or let it burn you." The reflection's voice laughed inside his head. "Oh, I like this game." Before Elias could respond, the fire closed around him. The cave vanished, replaced by endless red light and swirling ash. He stood alone on a platform of stone, suspended over a sea of fire. Across from him stood his reflection, now solid, real and smiling, so the reflection said. "This is the trial." Elias raised his dagger, his hands trembling. "I'll end this now," he said. The reflection tilted its head. "You can't kill what's inside you." Then it moved, faster than he could see. The two clashed in a storm of flame and sparks. Every strike echoed like thunder. The reflection fought with perfect precision, every move mirroring his own. When Elias swung his dagger, the reflection parried it effortlessly. Laughing, still holding back, it said, "You'll never win that way." Elias gritted his teeth, shouting, "I don't want your kind of power." The reflection's grin widened. "Then you'll die weak." The reflection slammed its fist into Elias's chest, sending him crashing to the ground. He coughed, pain shooting through his ribs. The reflection stood over him, flames swirling around its form. "Why do you fight me?" it asked. "We want the same thing, to protect her, to be free, to never bow again." Elias stared up, his voice barely a whisper. "No." "You want control?" The reflection's expression darkened. "You call it control," it said softly. "I call it courage." It reached down, grabbing Elias by the throat and lifting him. The heat burned against his skin. "You fear what you could become," the reflection hissed. "But I don't, I embrace it." Elias gasped for breath. The fire around them grew brighter, the sound of crackling flame mixing with the dragon's faint voice. "Face him, Elias. But do not become him. Elias closed his eyes, remembering his sister's laughter again. Her face was clear in his mind, her hand holding his when they were children. She used to say, bravery isn't about power. It's about doing what's right even when you're scared. He opened his eyes. Calm now. The reflection froze, seeing the change. Elias whispered, "You're not my strength, you're my fear." And with that, the dagger in his hand ignited in blue flame. He drove it into his own chest, not to kill himself, but to cut through the link. The reflection screamed. A sound like shattering glass, the world around them cracked. The fire collapsing inward, Elias fell to his knees, clutching his chest as light burst from within him. The reflection staggered, its form breaking apart like smoke in the wind. "This isn't over," it hissed. "I'll wait in the shadows." Then it vanished completely. The fire faded and the cavern returned. Elias collapsed on the cold stone. Gasping for air, Valora stood before him, her eyes soft but sad. "You faced your shadow," she said, "but the battle within is never truly over." Elias looked up weakly. "Did I pass?" The dragon nodded slowly. "You survived," she said, "and that is enough. For now." She turned her massive head toward the tunnel leading deeper into the mountain. "But your final trial awaits," she said. "The heart of the Horde." Elias frowned, his voice trembling. "What's there?" The dragon's eyes gleamed. "The truth you've been running from." As she spoke, the walls of the cavern began to glow again. Ancient symbols burned with golden light, and the ground beneath Elias shifted, forming a new path. He looked down the long corridor, feeling the pull of something powerful waiting ahead. The reflection's last words echoed in his mind. "I'll wait in the shadows." Elias tightened his grip on the dagger, the blue flame still flickering faintly along its edge. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. Behind him, the dragon's voice rumbled softly. "The choice you make there will decide everything." Elias walked into the glowing tunnel, his shadow stretching long behind him. And in that shadow, for just a moment, something smiled back. Elias walked down the glowing tunnel. The light from the walls pulsed like a heartbeat, guiding him deeper into the mountain. Every step echoed softly. Mixing with the faint hum of magic in the air, his body ached. His clothes were torn, but his mind was steady. He had faced his shadow, survived the dragon's fire, and now only one test remained. At the end of the passage, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. It was unlike any place he had seen before. The walls shimmered like glass, reflecting endless treasure piled high in the corners. But in the center stood a massive crystal heart, floating, glowing with red and gold light. Each beat of the heart sent ripples through the floor, and the sound of it was not just a pulse. It was alive. Valora appeared behind him, her massive wings folding gently as she entered. Her scales glowed faintly in the dim light, and her voice was softer now. "This is the heart of the Horde," she said, "the source of all the treasure's power, and the prison of my kind." Elias looked up at the crystal, frowning. "Prison?" he asked. The dragon nodded slowly. "Every dragon bound by greed is cursed to guard their own heart, trapped between life and eternity." Elias stared in silence. The air around the crystal shimmered like heat, and he could feel its pull, warm, inviting, almost comforting. Valora continued, "You came here for gold, but what you found was truth." She lowered her head, her eyes glowing faintly. "The treasure is not meant to be taken, Elias. It is meant to be freed." He turned toward her, confused. "Then why bring me here?" The dragon's gaze was sorrowful. "Because the Horde must pass on, the curse must be broken. And it can only be done by mortal choice." She stepped back, revealing two paths that formed behind her, one bathed in golden light, the other in darkness. Elias took a step forward. "What kind of choice?" he asked. Valora's voice deepened, echoing through the chamber. "Take the heart for yourself, and you will become what I am, powerful beyond measure, eternal, but bound to guard this place forever." Her eyes dimmed. "Or destroy the heart, and free us all, including me, but you will lose everything you gained, even your life." The words hung in the air like thunder. Elias felt his knees weaken. His mind spun with the weight of the decision. The reflection's voice whispered faintly inside his skull again. "You know what to do, Elias. Take it. End the suffering. Rule it." He clenched his fists, shaking his head. "I won't listen to you." Valora watched him silently. The crystal heart pulsed brighter, calling to him. Each beat filled him with visions. His sister alive and safe, His home restored, his enemies bowing before him. He could feel the temptation crawling under his skin. He took another step closer, the glow washing over him. The dragon spoke softly. "Be careful, Elias. Even good men are undone by what they desire most." Her words echoed in his mind, but the reflection's voice grew stronger. "You've already tasted power, Elias. Why go back to weakness? You could protect her forever, end every threat, every loss." Elias closed his eyes, breathing hard. Then he whispered, "Power that costs my soul isn't worth keeping." The dragon's gaze softened. But before she could speak, the reflection appeared again. It stepped out of his shadow, solid and burning with light. "Enough." It roared, "You're nothing without me." Elias turned to face it, holding his dagger tight. "I don't need you anymore," he said. The reflection laughed darkly. "Oh, Elias." "You are me." It lunged forward, but Elias dodged. Swinging his dagger in a wide arc, their blades clashed, sparks flying. The reflection shouted, "You think you can destroy the heart without destroying yourself?" Elias replied, "Maybe that's the point." Their voices echoed through the chamber, the crystal pulsing faster. Each heartbeat made the ground tremble. Vylora roared, her voice shaking the air. "Enough! The choice must be made now." Elias turned, his chest heaving, sweat dripping from his brow. He looked at the glowing crystal, at the reflection, at the dragon, and finally, at his own trembling hands. He whispered, "No one should carry this curse." He lifted his dagger, its blade glowing blue once more. The reflection screamed, "Stop! You'll die!" Elias didn't hesitate. He drove the blade into the crystal heart. A burst of golden light exploded outward, blinding everything. The entire cavern shook as waves of power rippled through the mountain. Vylora screamed, not in pain but in release. Her scales shattered like glass, turning into streams of light that spiraled into the air. The piles of gold dissolved into dust. The symbols on the walls faded, and the reflection staggered backward. Its form breaking apart. "You fool," it hissed. "You could have had everything." Elias smiled weakly. "I already did." The reflection vanished with the last burst of light. The chamber fell silent. The fire dimmed, and the glow of the heart faded to nothing. Elias knelt where the crystal once was, his body weak, his vision fading. The dragon's voice echoed softly, "You chose well, Elias of Aravor. The curse is broken." He looked up and saw her one last time, her form now made of light. Her eyes were kind. "You have freed us. And yourself." The light surrounded him, warm and peaceful. He whispered, "Tell my sister." I kept my promise, and then he closed his eyes. Silence filled the mountain. The hoard was gone, the curse was lifted. Only a faint blue flame remained where Elias had fallen, flickering gently in the dark. Years later, travelers spoke of a cave hidden deep in the mountains. They said sometimes, if you listen closely, you can hear a heartbeat in the stones, and on rare nights, a faint voice whispers through the wind. A choice offered to any who dare to enter. Take the small loot, or fight for the biggest prize.